Good morning. Now, in continuation with Chapter 13, Biodiversity and Conservation, today we are starting with the topic Loss of Biodiversity, reduction in the number of genes or an individual. Now, it is doubtful if any species are being added through speciation into the Earth's new species. What about continuing the losses? So, the biological wealth of our planet that has been declining rapidly, and the accusing finger is clearly pointing to human activities. So, the colonization of tropical Pacific islands by humans is said to have led to the extinction of more than 2000 species of the birds. Now, IUCN Red List 2004 documents the extinction of 784 species, including 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, and 87 plants in the last 500 years. Now, some examples of the recent extinctions includes the dodo in Mauritius, quagga in Africa, thylacine in Australia, Steller's sea cow in Russia, and 3 subspecies Bali, Javan, and Caspian of tiger. So, the last 20 years alone have witnessed the disappearance of 27 species. So, careful analysis of records shows that extinction across taxa is not random. Some groups like amphibians, they appear to be more vulnerable to extinction, and grim scenario of extinction is more than 15,000 species worldwide, they are facing the threat of extinction. 12% of all bird species, 23% of all mammals, and 32% of amphibian species, and 31% of all gymnosperm species in the world, they face the threat of extinction. Now, from the study of the history of life on Earth through fossil records, we learn that large-scale loss of species like we are currently witnessing have also happened earlier. Now, even before humans appeared on the scene during the long period, more than 3 billion years since the origin and diversification of life on Earth, there were 5 episodes of mass extinction of species. So, how is the 6th extinction, which is presently in progress, it is different from the previous episodes? The difference is in the rates. The current species extinction rates are estimated to be 100 to 1000 times faster than the pre-human times, and our activities are responsible for the faster rates. So ecologists, they warn that if the present trends continue, nearly half of all the species on the earth might be wiped out within the next 100 years. So in general, loss of biodiversity in a region may lead to decline in the plant production, lowered resistance to environmental factors such as drought, and increased variability in certain ecosystem processes such as plant productivity, water use, pest and disease cycles, etc. So the causes of biodiversity losses, so the increased rate of extinction in the world which we are facing, it is due to human activities, and there are 4 major causes which we are discussing here. The evil quartet is the sobriquet that is used to describe them. So habitat loss and fragmentation. Now, this is the most important cause driving animals and plants to extinction. The most dramatic example of habitat loss come from the tropical rainforest, once covering more than 14% of the Earth's land surface. These rainforests now cover no more than 6%, and they are being destroyed fast. So by the time you finish completing this chapter, 1000 more hectares of rainforest would have been destroyed. So the Amazon rainforest, it is so huge that it is called as the lungs of the planet, which is harboring probably millions of species, is being cut and cleared for cultivating soya beans or for conversion of grasslands for raising beef cattle. Besides total loss, the degradation of many habitats of the pollution also threatens the survival of many species. When large habitats are broken up into small fragments due to various human activities, mammals and birds, which require huge territories, and certain animals with migratory habitats, they are badly affected, leading to population declines. So thinning, fragmentation, or outright destruction of an ecosystem, plant, soil, hydrologic and nutrient resources, they are being destroyed. Over exploitation. Now, humans, they have always depended on nature for food and shelter, but when need returns to greed, it leads to over exploitation of natural resources. Many species extinctions in the last 500 years, stellar sea cow, passenger pigeon, were due to over exploitation by humans. Presently, many marine fish populations around the world are over harvested, endangering the continued existence of some commercially important species. Now, alien species invasion. Now, in overexploitation, where the process of harvesting is too many aquatic or terrestrial animals, which depletes the stocks of some species while driving the others to extinction, is happening. Now, invasive species or the alien species invasion, when alien species are introduced unintentionally or deliberately for whatever purpose, some of them term invasive, and cause decline or extinction of the indigenous species. The Nile perch, which was introduced into the Lake Victoria in the East Africa, led eventually to the extinction of an ecologically unique assemblage of more than 200 species of the cichlid fish in the lake. So we are also familiar with the environmental damage caused and threat posed to our native species by invasive weed species like carrot grass or Parthenium, lantana, and water hyacinth or Eichhornia, and the recent illegal introduction of African catfish, that is Clarias garriapinus, for aquaculture purposes, posing a threat to the indigenous catfishes in our rivers. So any innovative species that significantly modifies or disrupts the ecosystem it colonizes results in destruction and extinction of the native species. Pollution. Pollution is another important factor. Addition of any substance or any form of energy to the environment to raise faster than it can be rendered harmless. And climate change, which is also associated with the global warming, that is modification of the Earth's climate, which is associated with the rising levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere over the past 2 centuries. So influences are the human population growth, increasing consumption, and reduced source efficiency. Now, apart from these factors, co-extinction, when a species become extinct and the plant and animal species associated with it in an obligatory way also become extinct. So when a host species become extinct, its unique assemblage of parasites, they also meet the same fate. So another example is the case of a co-evolved plant pollinator mutualism, where extinction of one invariably leads to the extinction of the other species. Now, how do we conserve? Why should we conserve biodiversity? There are many reasons, some obvious and others, but all equally important. They are grouped into 3 categories: narrowly utilitarian, broadly utilitarian, and ethical. In narrowly utilitarian arguments, our conserving biodiversity are obvious. Humans derive countless direct economic benefits from nature: food, cereals, pulses, firewood, fiber, tannins, lubricants, dyes, medicinal importance, and more than 25% of the drugs. So nobody knows how many more medicinally useful plants there are in the tropical rainforest. So with increasing resources which are put into bioprospecting, nations endowed with rich biodiversity can expect to reap enormous benefits. So that is a narrow utilitarian approach. Now, in broadly utilitarian argument says that biodiversity plays a major role in many ecosystem services that nature provides. So the fast dwindling Amazon forest is estimated to produce. So we can get some idea by finding out how much your neighborhood hospital spends on a cylinder of oxygen. So pollination without plants cannot give us fruits or seeds. So there are other intangible benefits that we derive from nature. The aesthetic pleasures of walking through thick woods, watching spring flowers in the full bloom, or waking up to a bulbul song in the morning. Can we put a price tag on such things? Third approach is ethical argument for conserving biodiversity relates to what we owe to millions of plants, animals, and microbe species with whom we share this planet. So philosophically or spiritually, we need to realize that every species has an intrinsic value, even if it may not be current or any economic value to us. So how do we conserve biodiversity? When we conserve and protect the whole ecosystem, the diversity at all levels of protection, so we follow the on-site and the off-site conservation. So conservation of species in a natural ecosystem is an attempt to protect the endangered plants and animals, and outside their habitat, in their artificial habitat, then it is called as ex situ or off-site conservation. So they are in their natural environment, they are in their artificially created environment. National parks, biological reserves, parks, sanctuaries, they are in the on-site conservation, and zoos, aquariums, seed banks, they are in the off-site conservation. On-site conservation is always dynamic, and here it is static. So captive breeding is not effective in case of all species, but captive breeding can easily increase the number only in the case of some species. It is cheap and convenient, and it is for commercial purposes. Now here we find that rhododendrons, they are in the in situ conservation, whereas Kew Botanical Gardens of London, they are the examples of ex situ conservation. So biodiversity conservation, we can study it through this flowchart also, in situ and ex situ conservation. In situ, the protected area network, sacred groves, sacred lakes, biosphere reserves, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, they can be considered, all these methods. And sacred plants, home gardens, seed banks, field seed banks, cryopreservation, botanical gardens, arborate and zoological gardens or aquaria, they all come under ex situ conservation. Now when we biodiversity hotspot regions, we have to identify with high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism. Endemism is the species which are confined to that area only, they are not found anywhere else. So we have to find out those places and we'll try to conserve them. Then sacred groves, they are found in Khasi, Jaintia Hills in Meghalaya, Ravli Hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat regions of Karnataka, Maharashtra. Okay, then in the ex situ conservation, we know that the historical convention of biological diversity, the Earth Summit, which was held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, which is called upon all nations to take appropriate measures for conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefit. So in a follow-up, the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in 2002 in Johannesburg, 190 countries pledged their commitment to achieve by 2010, and a significant reduction in the current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional as well as local levels is there. So we have to analyze, okay, where we are going wrong so that we can conserve biodiversity for our own benefits. Thank you so much.